I did ask my family. I did ask some friends. I got their feedback, and based on that, I decided that I could or should take this case. Guilty is the result of a judicial process in which either a jury finds beyond reasonable doubt that somebody did it, or somebody admits to doing it and pleads guilty themselves. Nobody charged is guilty until somebody says they're guilty. If you're asking whether or not people should represent people who, quote, did it, end quote, that's more complicated, because very often somebody is charged who did something, but not it.
Well, the Justice Department reportedly is launching a grand jury probe of New York Attorney General Letitia James over her civil fraud case against President Trump. The Attorney General's team, as you might expect, is firing back.
Abbe, the Justice Department seems to be operating under the theory that your client, the New York Attorney General Letitia James, may have deprived President Trump of his civil rights with her civil fraud case against him. Your reaction to that?
There could be so many. You know, when I read that, you have to think that the famous author George Orwell, who wrote 1984, that coined the famous phrase of doublespeak and the state saying things opposite of what it means. His book, now, what President Trump and the people who carry out his mandate, it makes George Orwell's 1984 look like a Mother Goose nursery rhyme. I mean, it is just beyond comprehension, and we can't get inured to it, Ali. The requests to the Office of Attorney General that you mentioned to have to do the case the office brought against the NRA, found by a court and jury to have defrauded the people at the organization, or, as you pointed out, the $500 million judgment rendered against the president, his companies, or himself. Those represent the rule of law operating the way it should, correct? I mean, you had process, you had case, you had lawyers. That's what people that were on juries decided was right. And for them now to do this, think about what the request is. They have demanded, through the process of a grand jury, every piece of paper. I want everybody to understand that. Every piece of paper the Office of Attorney General has in its possession that was used in the case against the NRA, and every piece of paper that was used against the case dealing with President Trump and his businesses. Every single. Well, that would be an unprecedented breadth of a request anyway. But if you can have the presidency go against the people who use the courts of law to find him wrong when he was wrong, then they have taken this idea of retribution to places that, as I pointed out before, the authors like George Orwell would have never dreamed in their worst nightmares.
And in the modern day, this happens. We look for examples in Hungary and Turkey and India where they sort of go after people for things like this to sort of get them out of the political sphere. Back in April, the federal government issued a criminal referral alleging that your client, Letitia James, committed mortgage fraud. Back then, you sent a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, which included documents and exhibits that you say refute the allegations. But you said something else that was important, warning Bondi against this type of political retribution. So you knew then that the administration was going to double down.
Well, I mean, President Trump campaigned on this. It didn't take him long after getting elected that he created people that would carry this out. I mean, remember, his first choice for Attorney General was Matt Gaetz. I mean, if he was signaling what he was going to use the Department of Justice for. You can say a lot of things about what's supposed to happen between those two places on Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House and the Department of Justice, where I started my career. But the separation is supposed to have existed at some level. I don't think there's been an attorney general that has been willing to carry out the president's wrongdoing as much as Pam Bondi has since, I'd say John Mitchell with President Nixon. So this was something he announced, and it's happening as per the game plan he announced. The idea, though, again, back to this idea of doublespeak. The fact that these cases are now being brought, or that he appointed Ed Martin as a special attorney in his department. What's his department called? The Department of Weaponization.
Yeah.
The idea that this department, that is his idea to address the weaponization that he claims was in the past, is now turning into the nuclear bomb of weaponization in the future, is just another example of what I've just been saying as to how the manipulation of language makes your head spin.
In a letter I referenced that you had sent to Pam Bondi in April, you You tried leveling with her as a fellow prosecutor. You wrote, quote, "In your position as Florida's 37th Attorney General and now the nation's top prosecutor, you brought or will bring cases as part of your oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and faithfully discharge the duties of the office. When you do so based on probable cause in a criminal case or an initial finding of civil liability, you're not weaponizing. You are carrying out your sworn duty. No one is better than you to recognize that Attorney General James is being targeted for having done the same things in her work, including the case against Mr. Trump and his companies," end quote. Tell me about this. Did you get a response to that?
Well, when we sent the letter, there was deafening silence. I didn't even get an acknowledgement that it was received, let alone a conversation about what I said. So let that serve as whatever it is and their answer to my request. I also, in that letter, as you saw, she had quoted her in her confirmation hearings about what she said she would not do to become somebody carried out political retribution, which, like so many of the statements people are making to get themselves confirmed by the Senate, was good for the day that they said it, and then 5 minutes later it doesn't become something that they carry forward. And one more thing to say about this so-called mortgage fraud allegation. Let's just call what it is, because I did set this out in the letter as well. You know, if you have a file on your house, bunches of piece of paper, and one of those pieces of paper say that it was a residence when it was an investment property, or vice versa, but every other piece of paper in the same file makes that clear, so that you have one that might have had a box checked wrong, that's not the subject of a criminal investigation or a case. It could be a mistake.
By a special attorney.
A different form. Yes, let alone appointing a special attorney. And on that, let's also point out something that I'm sure maybe people haven't figured this out. So what had happened in the last 2 days, Attorney General Bondi appointed the person who couldn't get himself confirmed to be an actual prosecutor, the person who they wanted to be the confirmed U.S. attorney here in the District of Columbia, to be a special attorney, which is a designation under the regulations and rules for a specific purpose. And he is charged with pursuing this investigation of so-called mortgage impropriety against both Attorney General Letitia James and U.S. Senator Adam Schiff of California, both of which have reasons to have said on their property documents what they did. But everybody note what was missing.
Yep.
Apparently, they didn't decide to include Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, who news reports indicate that he has 3 residences, 3 homes, all of which he has declared to be his primary residence. So I guess it means that in the world of weaponization, it's only weaponized against Democrats, that the idea of selective enforcement is fine, and that only Democrats get scrutinized, and Republicans who do no better and perhaps a lot worse get a free pass as long as there's an R in front of their political party.
You represent, on the basis of what you think to be the law, Democrats, Republicans. You're not a partisan guy in terms of clients you take on. But this is a really important consideration. If the government comes after you, Letitia James, Adam Schiff, but Joe Schmo, you have to have legal representation, and that's super expensive because you need somebody like you who actually understands the system.
Well, look, I've said this in many contexts. Let me make clear 2 things. You say it one way, I'd like to say it a different way. I have basically challenged the overreach of federal agencies in every administration since Ronald Reagan's. Didn't matter whether it's a Democratic or Republican administration. If the government overreaches, then lawyers' job is to put the government in the right place. You know, what was that 19th century Senator Carl Schurz who said, "My country, wrong or right? If right to be kept right, if wrong to be set right." That's what lawyers do. And it has not been a partisan filter for my work ever. I've represented, as you know, high-profile Republicans and high-profile Democrats. People keep pointing out that I might be the only person to have represented the child of a Republican president and the child of a Democratic president. So that's not the filter. The filter is if the government acts beyond its power, it is the job of lawyers to set it right. And people forget, and maybe they should remember, that John Adams represented the British troops who were accused of murder in the Boston Massacre and then went on to be president of the United States. It's not a coincidence that President Trump knows that in addition to emasculating Congress, he has to attack the media and he has to attack lawyers, because the media and lawyers were part of the founders' concept of protecting democracy as well. This is a full frontal attack.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.